U.S. National Arboretum. He's going to talk to us. There's been discussion about opening that Maryland Avenue gate at the end of Maryland Avenue, and we want to talk about that. My concern, which is why I called this meeting, is that a 7D01 commissioner introduced a resolution at the August 8th ANC 5D meeting that was read and discussed by the 7D01 commissioner, who has absolutely no standing in the 5D community. And I want to hear from the people that actually live on that mercy.
Well, I'm glad that you finally have decided to address some people who actually live.
Excuse me, ma'am. You're out of order.
It's not going to happen today.
It's not. We'll ask you to leave.
We're
going to ask you to leave. You will not disrupt the meeting. You will not
for a
disrupt this
change.
meeting. Can you ask her to leave, please?
This happens too frequently.
We're
Orderliness.
not having this. You are going to conduct yourself appropriately. You're going to wait to be recognized. Then you will speak in civil tones and proceed. Is that understood?
As long as
Is that understood? No conversation. I have the floor.
I have no problem with people being.
I have the floor. Miss Moore. I have the floor.
We're not going to tolerate
get out.
this now.
Get out.
Officer, can you remove her? She's being disruptive.
No,
We're not going to have that today. No! Stop! Stop! Stop!
Stop.
Stop! 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 Stop!
Stop.
No, why you yelling?
Stop.
You stop yelling.
Stop.
Stop.
You stop yelling. But we don't need you yelling and pointing your finger.
Stop. Stop. Just
You're going to stop. We're going to deal with you.
Please.
You will not be recognized. You will sit there and be quiet.
Thank you.
Okay?
I think that's
Well, you will be quiet. You've not been recognized. You will not be recognized. You've come here to disrupt this meeting. Other people are here to hear the issues. You will not be recognized. I need you to cease and desist. I need you to cease and desist. You're a disruptive element and you have no right to disrupt the meeting. We will have order here. We will have order. If you cannot comport yourself according to the rules, then I ask you to step outside. But you will wait to be recognized. The rules are civility. You will wait to be recognized. I have convened this meeting. I will recognize people. You will speak and have your say. Everyone will have the opportunity to be heard, but with one caveat. I expect that those persons that live in this community to be heard first. You will not speak out of order, you will not be disruptive, and you will not be rude. And if you cannot comport yourself appropriately, I ask you to leave before we put you out.
I think that is fair.
Stop! Stop!
I think that's
Stop!
fair.
Stop! You've not been recognized. Stop.
Please stop.
Just stop.
Please stop.
It's not funny. You're being very
please stop,
rude,
Sidell?
very disrespectful, very
I'm
inappropriate.
not yelling at you.
Be
I'm just
quiet.
asking you to
Stop.
It doesn't
yelling.
have
Stop.
to be yelling. Can you just please
Stop.
stop?
Stop.
That's
Again.
childish.
Oh my God.
People were screaming.
Well, Dr. Olson, what a welcome. First, let me just say this. We've been a partner with, as I shared with you, we've been a partner with the Arboretum for many, many years, going back to when I first moved here in 1998. We've had a very productive relationship with your staff. You all have given us trees. You all have loaned helping hands to actually plant numerous trees throughout this community. We've been working together very closely. Dr. Elias and I we became bosom buddies, Tom, and we look forward to having a fruitful and productive relationship with you. The U.S. National Arboretum is an absolute asset in our community. It is to be enjoyed by all. But again, the purpose of this meeting is to hear from the people that actually live here. I have a problem with other commissioners introducing resolutions or having standing in the 5D meetings. That is inappropriate. For example, if one of the senators from New Jersey has an issue with a senator in Pennsylvania, you don't go to Pennsylvania and interfere. You work collegially to address the issue. And we're gonna have the same level of decorum here. And if there are people that believe that the mob mentality rules and that the community that lives here will not be listened to, you have a problem. I support democracy. I am elected by these individuals, and I will make sure that the voices of the people that live in this community are heard. And with that, the floor is yours.
Thank you.
See, everyone is passionate about the Arboretum. Well, welcome. Thank you for having me. It's been too long. I took over in May of 2015 as director. And prior to that, I was a scientist at the Arboretum working on the urban tree breeding program. So I was hired in 2006. So Dr. Elias hired me. So I do remember Dr. Elias. So, and then 9 years later, somehow I find myself as a director. So I'm not unfamiliar with a little bit of the history. I don't know how many people have lived in this area for a while, how many people are new. I don't want to be telling you too much information you already know, but if you'll entertain me for a second, I'll give you a little background. You may know that we were created by an act of Congress in 1927, so we're 90 years old, and we were enacted for basically one thing, that was to conduct research and education in the tree planting. There was a need in this country for a true national botanical institute. And first and foremost, we are a research institute. The only other thing that the Act of Congress pretty much said was two things. One was it would be under competent scientific direction. And I always joke, I'm not sure I'm competent, but I do have a PhD, so that counts for something. But it would be administered by the Secretary of Agriculture as he or she saw fit. That was pretty much it. And then the third one would be allocation of money to buy the Mount Hamilton site. So they had batted the idea of an Arboretum around since the turn of the century. And it wasn't until 27 that, I know it's hard to believe that Congress doesn't always act fast, but by 1927 we were enacted. So we are part of the Department of Agriculture. We are considered one of the premier scientific research institutes for public gardens. We have a national and international reputation. We have a $12 million budget. $7 million of that goes straight to research. At least $5 million to run the place. So that's to give you a little bit of a comparison. If you look at Chicago or New York or other places, they have $30 million budgets to run the gardens. So we are in a whole little sort of different class. And the reason I say all that is you have to remember that we're part of the Department of Agriculture, and first and foremost it's research. We're part of the Agricultural Research Service. So the friction points in all of this comes down to what is the mission of the Arboretum, and then what is it that people think we are. And that interface between our mission and what the department says we are and what the people of BC say we are is where we have the greatest friction. Now, I'm not saying that to scare you, because I believe that in order for the Arboretum to succeed into the future, we have to be fully integrated with the workings of the city, and particularly in the Northeast, because we are an asset to the city. We're 450 acres, we're 1% of the city. And in Northeast in particular, we are the only large open space that's more than 2 acres, essentially. So the Northwest has Rock Creek Park, the portion of the city has the mall, and then you have us here in the Northeast. So we recognize that we're a tremendous asset for the city, and what we hope is that the city recognizes that they're getting a lot of in-kind pro bono services from us being 450 acres of an urban, serene urban oasis. And so we welcome people. We have noticed an uptick in attendance. I don't think it's due just to the really nice August, which has been unbelievable. And we're trying to encourage more and more people to come. You may have noticed the Friends of the National Arboretum is really our major nonprofit support group and advocate group. We're not allowed to spend congressionally appropriated dollars on marketing and advertisement and lobbying and on everything that most public public institutes, and thinking museums and others would do in other areas. But because we are federal, we have a nonprofit partner, FONA, which does this for us. So they're really engaging. You may have been, I don't know how many of you have been to any of our music events that we've been having in the evenings. That's pretty much an easy thing for us to do. It doesn't really compromise our mission, it doesn't really compromise our plans, but it reaches out to the community, and it's really a wonderful thing to see. So we hope to do more of that. We definitely want the people here. Unfortunately, we are free and open to the public, which means it doesn't matter if we have 100,000 or 1.1 million people, our budget's the same. So more and more people cause more and more stress on infrastructure, and so we have to manage that with our available resources. And we are, again, USDA, part of the executive branch, work for the president, and so it will be dependent on what the president and his administration provides us through the budget and from Congress. So we we're on track there. So another little bit about history. So we got $12 million budget, and budgets have been relatively flat for several decades. And so if any of you run a business, you know that if your budget is flat, pretty much within 10 years, you've lost 25% of your buying power. So a lot of the decisions we make have to do with our gross fiduciary constraints, and one of those is security. Our security is provided by a contract. It's not federal employees, and that contract is negotiated on a regular basis, and it's not cheap to provide security. And so anyone who's lived in the neighborhood long enough recalls when the M Street gate was open, but that was closed mid-late 90s, maybe, thereabouts, for various reasons. But a good portion of that was just simply, do we have the ability to maintain it? Now, stop there and go back 90 years. Has anyone ever wondered why the main gate of the Arboretum is on M Street? If you ever came through there and looked, it looks a little odd. That was our front door. In the 1950s, when we opened, pretty much, that was the front door. And the reason it's the front door is because the Arboretum was designed to meet the Senate Parks Commission plan for Washington, D.C. So when, in the 1900s, when the McMillan Commission said, hey, you're not following LaFont's vision for the mall, you got all this development on the mall, we're supposed to follow the original plan. So in came the McMillan Commission, and part of that plan was the new Baltimore-Washington Parkway would be on this side of the river. And when you came into DC, your main entrance into Washington, DC would be off of Maryland Avenue, M Street and Maryland. So you would tool off southbound on Baltimore-Washington Parkway, and the first thing you would see is the National Arboretum. And then you could go about your way. So you would drive in through this grand gate into the National Arboretum, and you would tool around in your new car in the 1930s, or 20s really, when it was first designed. And then you would leave, and you would go back into DC and do what you were going to do, or if you were leaving DC. So our design is stuck in the 1920s, and for the last 90 years we've been trying to solve that, because what ended up happening was the Baltimore-Washington Parkway was built on the other side, and that defaulted to New York Avenue as the main entrance to Washington, D.C. on this side. Now, some of you have seen New York Avenue. It's pretty industrial. Well, imagine what it looked like 90 years ago. It was even more industrial. That's why they didn't want that to be the main entrance. So when the Arboretum was built, we're basically backwards. 70,000 cars a day go down New York Avenue, and most people don't even really pay attention to the Arboretum there. So in our various master plans, we've got about 4 of them, 4 or 5 of them that we don't seem to follow, and I'm going to try to fix that. We've tried to solve this, and one of the problems is R Street. So many of you come through R Street. Well, R Street was only ever intended to be a service entrance. The administration building was built circa 1964, and then that was supposed to be just research and administration, and then there would be a formal visitor center somewhere else on the grounds. Well, that never got built. And so R Street became the default entrance because people were coming from New York. They weren't coming from Maryland and M Street. So we shut down M Street, we use R Street, but that creates a bit of demand on the Arboretum neighborhood there. And so our last master plan put the entrance to the Arboretum on Bladensburg. So if you've ever wondered why there's a stoplight that's not being used in a road cut on Bladensburg on our property, that's because that is where our new entrance is supposed to be. So if you have $60 million for me, I'll put it in. But since that's probably not going to happen, we got to get more realistic about how to function. So what we're currently doing is through FONA, we've hired a very well-known landscape architecture firm from Boston, Reed Hildebrand. They have hired, I should say, on our behalf, to address what we call the core of the Arboretum. I'm hoping many of you have been there, otherwise you wouldn't be here tonight. The core is pretty much what I call the greenhouses admin building, all the way over to the Washington Youth Garden that centrally lifts. There's a circular road. Probably, I'm just gonna guess here, 90% of our visitors to the Arboretum never leave the core, even though we have great collections outside of it. But if you've ever been there, the circulation is kind of, well, based in 1927 when everybody had to drive a car. And so there's no hierarchy for the roads. What's a service road? What's a public road? Where do the pedestrians, for most of your existence here, you've walked on our roads to get from point A to point B. Well, that's not a very pleasant visitor experience. And so we're asking them to sort of rethink how that works. Part of this is what to do with M Street. So I will recognize that things have changed in the last 10 years.